about how many times you can get hit and keep moving forward.
That's messed up. You can't quote Rocky on me like that.
You know, with the decaying state of Hollywood these days, and the movie industry in general, when something good actually comes along that isn't force-feeding woke nonsense down your throat, well, it tends to stand out. Now, The Fall Guy, loosely based on the 1981 series, is a non-memorable yet undeniably fun movie about a stuntman working on his ex-girlfriend's directorial debut and a conspiracy involving the lead actor. It was directed by David Leitch, known for Bullet Train and Deadpool 2 among others, and given our two leads, Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt, fresh off of Barbie and Oppenheimer respectively, movies that did somewhat good numbers, it was seemingly a recipe for box office success. And it was, if you're going to compare it to Furiosa, but given this movie didn't have any reason to avoid it, a box office bomb it was. This comes as a surprise to many, and unfortunately, I hate seeing something like this fail, but it's not quite as baffling as you may think. Despite appearing in two monumental films on the same day, Gosling and Blunt are still not box office actors, the marketing really didn't do it any favors, focusing primarily on the action comedy, ignoring the murder mystery elements, and maybe putting the trailer out 6 months ahead of release wasn't the finest of ideas. On top of that, the budget of $125 million to $150 million was way too big for a movie like this, considering the target audience who probably doesn't even know what The Fall Guy even is. So the idea of paying money for a movie that does not demand to be seen on the big screen is simply not practical when it's just going to release digitally the next month anyway. Throw in the bad release date and the poor state of the economy, and The Fall Guy not being a smash hit isn't that hard to comprehend. They really had to put more thought into how they handled this. It's quite clear Hollywood's learned nothing, but if you were one of the lucky ones who did see it, well, it deserves to be seen. Yeah, it's not perfect, and like I said, it is a bit forgettable, but even though the trailers don't show it off, if you know what this movie's about before going in, that's essentially what you get. Great stunt work, a likable cast, a pretty engaging plot, and a film that I say is hard not to enjoy, and an opening that immediately sets the tone.
They're in almost every movie. You just don't know that they're there.
I like the inclusion of real movies giving it an authentic touch, and the fact that it doesn't waste a lot of time explaining who he is. That being the stunt double for famous actor Tom Ryder, played by Aaron Tyler Johnson. But it also does a good job addressing what stuntmen actually do, and how they really don't get the credit they deserve.
Colt Sievers. Getting blown up and hiding my face in a muddy puddle.
Fitting in with the movie's tone, he doesn't really seem to mind this, calling it his dream job, and is quite satisfied with his girlfriend Jodie, who is currently the camera woman. I like how he acts like you know who Tom Ryder is, even though he's clearly fictional, and Gosling's overall tone and personality is really on point for this.
Jodie, right?
He has this great combination of being charming and funny, and despite the events to come, he never really loses that. Those events being a freak accident causing him to break his pelvis, leading him to abandon Jodie and his stunt career. Throw in the 18-month time skip for good measure, and that may seem like an awful thing to do, but given we just established he was more than content, it's not completely insensible that he would fall into depression and make some bad decisions. Of course, we don't actually see this, but the 18-month time skip is there for a reason. He gets a call from Tom's producer Gail, played by Hannah Waddingham, who tells him Tom is starring in Jodie's directorial debut film being a space opera, and she wants Cole to join the production in Sydney. He initially refuses until Gail tells him Jodie specifically asked for him, and I've got to point out the way he gives Tom's cologne ad the middle finger, and the way the title is presented, are both real nice touches. We then meet Cole's old friend and stunt coordinator Dan Tucker, played by Winston Duke, in which we see he's not particularly enthused about doing stunt work again.
You're stalling.
Maybe.
You're stalling.
And the initial stunt doesn't go completely as planned, with a camera being lost, but it definitely looks good. Similar to the fictional space opera, the stunts were all done practically without AI or CGI. Everything we see happening is real, and for a movie like this, that's kind of important. I mean, it's about a stuntman, I don't think I need to explain why. I also think you saw this coming.
Whose idea was this?
And I'll just say it, aside from the practical effects, their chemistry is the best thing about this movie. That can be said for many characters, honestly, but these two really nail it. Obviously, she's not too pleased about him disappearing, but the way they handle it feels authentic. So many times would it just be, it's over, I'm done with you, that's it, only to be obviously resolved by the end. But in this case, that's not what this feels like. We have a real comedic bit when she deliberately makes him do the fire stunt over and over again, while at the same time subtly comparing the movie to their relationship.
Now, neither of them had ever been in a relationship that deep before. And they told each other that over and over and over again.
Again, both their personalities are on point, they really make it believable. And after failing to keep the whole thing private, he admits that he regretted what he did, and waited too long to say anything. Also, the movie doesn't forget it's still a comedy.
I had a similar situation when I fell in love with my wife's sister.
Okay, no.
And after saying he'd love another chance, you can kind of see where it's going, and it's nice to see it done this way. It makes for one of the more memorable scenes in the film, and essentially sums up what it's about. Again, it could have been the same repetitive nonsense nobody wants to see, but instead the movie doesn't spend too much time on this and moves on to the main plot. Colt is unpleased about being lied to, but she tells him it was to give him a second chance, and more importantly, Ryan has gone missing after getting involved with some drug dealers, and she needs Colt to find him before anybody notices. Not wanting the movie ruined, he agrees, but upon going to his apartment, things don't go as planned. This would be Tom's girlfriend Iggy, played by Teresa Palmer, and this scene is real good.
Why do you look so familiar? Hey, were you in that movie Carjacked, where the guy named Jack steals your car and then you shoot him in the hand?
That's Naomi Watts!
Is this a prop sword?
She eventually tells him that Ryder thinks somebody's trying to kill him, and that he might find out who at his favorite nightclub. He goes to see drug dealer Dune, but aside from some dialogue on how cartoons are better than movies, as they don't try to be real, it's not the most productive talk, ending with him being drugged, but it does give us some unique visuals. The neon suit definitely helps making him stand out, and after putting a stop to his escape the way only a stuntman can, he finds out that he was paid to drug him by the guy who runs Ryder's security, and then he can ask a guy named Kevin for the key to his room. Unfortunately, that fails multiple times, so in the end he just breaks in which Jodie happens to call him to discuss split screens.
The aliens invaded Earth and they left it in tatters. So this whole thing, the studio pushing for the love conquers all thing, I'm not buying it.
It's again the subtle comparison thing, but it's also the last we see of it. If this kept on going beyond this point, it would get tiring. It's the kind of thing that's so commonly overdone, so instead they found a way to make it stand out while not overdoing it. The split screen, the similar movement, the fact that you feel it's actually going somewhere, and most importantly, it does go somewhere by the next time they're on screen. They're not going to spend the whole movie repeating the same jokes, and the plot will legitimately progress. Not the expectancy of most modern movies, but this one seems to get that.
But is it a problem they can't overcome? Here's a question. Are they even gonna try?
Are you even going to consider liking the video? Because subscribing may be the next step. Hello? He discovers a dead body, in which Gail says she'll handle it and don't speak to the police, but a cop happens to be there and the body happens to be gone, so that's that. He contemplates telling Jodie what happened, which would be the sensible thing to do, but that's irrelevant now as Jodie no longer needs Ryder. Instead, she just needs him because he can do anything, and the scene that follows really does perfectly sum up the first half of the movie. It obviously looks amazing, the relationship is essentially rekindled, and it's so much more satisfying than sticking this at the very end. After this, Gail tells him he has to leave because shit's going down, but instead he tracks down Tom's assistant Elma, played by Stephanie Ansu, who gives him Tom's phone that apparently had something important on it, but they don't have the passcode, and they're attacked by Tom's head of security. This leads to an incredibly fun chase, while at the same time Gail tells Jodie that Colt left with no issue whatsoever, leading to the pretty obvious conclusion that Gail is not good. As for the scene that accompanies this, the combination of her song and this amazing set piece is perfect. I can't even describe how good it is, how fitting it is. Having them drive past the bar is genius. So many memorable moments, an abundance of unique ideas. It's such an amazing set piece, it really has to be seen. I've been saying that a lot, haven't I? Probably just watch the movie. I mean, I guess you could say it gets a bit predictable at this point. I mean, Gale being bad was obvious, but upon locating Tom's passcode and finding that he accidentally killed his new stunt double Henry, the same guy in the bathtub, it's not that hard to comprehend what's going on. Given they sent Tom there, it's obvious they want to frame him, but am I really gonna complain about that? I don't think so. Yeah, the movie does have mystery elements, and it's not a very big mystery, but it is also an action comedy, and the fight scene that follows, which includes the usage of movie props, definitely has both those things. If you don't like it, you don't like fun, unless of course you take offense to this line. Or the fact that this guy somehow thinks he's dead. I mean, it's a white tank top. There would be blood. But amongst the chaos, the phone does get shot, despite the henchman not noticing, and upon escaping onto Tom's yacht, we find out, well, you know, it was him who killed Henry.
Shocking.
And he also caused the accident, because Colt was becoming too popular. Him and Gale planned on framing him using deepfake technology, and after finding out the phone's been destroyed, they decide it's time to end it. Well, given the Kiss music playing throughout the whole movie, it's not that hard to see that coming. During the boat chase, he manages to call Jody and apologize for real, somehow combining emotion, action, and comedy. But even though he's a professional stuntman, they of course believe the big explosion was an accident and he's dead. I mean, they found his jacket. Everybody knows jackets are impervious to explosions. They just fly right off. I'm not gonna pretend this moment means anything, but the next day we find out he's not dead.
Positively shocking.
Why he chose to enter in complete disguise, I have no idea, but all that established, they devise a plan to not only expose Ryder, but finish the movie. The idea is to trick him into doing his own stunt, saying they need a close-up, leading to a climax you probably saw coming.
Out of the car.
Howdy.
Not the newest of ideas, but you can't deny it's entertaining. It does lead to him confessing, which supposedly is okay because Tom's wearing the wire? And if this had been it, it'd be a bit of a letdown, but luckily it's not. First off, we have this.
Just come with me. We don't need all this toxic masculinity.
And upon them escaping in a helicopter, we have our true climax, which, like everything else, is real damn good. There really is no, it's starting to drag, the finale is disappointing, it may not be the best scene in the movie, but it's a satisfying final set piece. The only thing I don't get is when Tom refuses to shoot him, stating he's the best stuntman ever. Tom's had no redeeming qualities in the movie, so don't know where that came from. But the gun's empty anyway, ending things off with some licensed music, so in the end it can only be seen. The fact that they replaced him with Jason Momoa is kind of hilarious, and unlike this movie, and Jason's last movie, very pleased about that, Metal Storm was oddly enough not a box office failure. There is also an out-of-sequence mid-credit scene, in which Gale is arrested and Tom accidentally blows himself up, with cameos of Lee Majors and Heather Thomas from the original Fall Guy series. Just completely blown away by that, but that was the Fall Guy. And despite me hardly saying anything negative, I did state it is a bit forgettable. And that's because it is. And don't get me wrong, this is a movie that should have been seen in theaters, and it's a shame more people didn't. The action set pieces are fantastic, the dynamic and chemistry between the two leads is perfect, and as I've been saying throughout, it has a unique and authentic feel. So easily could have been the same thing we always see, but instead they take a more realistic approach, and I really enjoyed that. It's fun all the way through, the comedy lines are always on point, and the plot, despite being somewhat predictable, is still real engaging. The reason I say it's forgettable is more or less because this kind of thing usually is. It's not exactly a high-stakes concept, but in all honesty, that's okay. And the reason I'm covering this is likely because not that many people saw it. Maybe I still would, but in the end, it'll probably wind up being more popular just because of the bad box office. It's not the most notable thing to come out this year, it's not a cinematic masterpiece, but like Bullet Train, it doesn't need to be. They both give you exactly what that kind of movie should, and The Fall Guy is about equal in quality. I did label Bullet Train 2022's finest, and the same can be said for this, but that's really only because of the competition. Still, this definitely has to be seen. It's a fantastic movie, has my full recommendation, and will likely end up being one of 2024's finest movies. I'm the analyst, and remember kids, never judge a movie by its trailer. Unless the economy is fucked like it is now. Then just wait a month, I guess. So, you've made it to the end. That's an impressive feat indeed. Since you managed that, I guess check out the gaming channel, in which I cover a variety of gaming topics, like analysis videos, such as this one. If you're into that, then press the link in the description. It's that simple.